Have you ever had that moment? You're reaching for your daily medication and you just pause, thinking, wait, did I already take this today?
Or maybe worse, you realize hours later you completely missed it.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually a really common struggle, isn't it?
It really is. And it's more than just forgetting a vitamin.
Right. For millions living with chronic conditions, managing hypertension or asthma or more serious conditions like schizophrenia, that daily remembering, it isn't just some small inconvenience.
No, not at all. It's a critical hurdle, a huge factor in consistent care.
And the consequences of missing doses.
They can be severe, especially in neuropsychiatric conditions where the illness itself might affect memory or organization. We see worsening symptoms, relapse, sometimes even hospitalization. It's a really significant unmet need that doctors have been grappling with.
Okay, so if remembering that daily pill is the core problem, what's the potential breakthrough?
Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Exactly. Our deep dive is looking at something pretty remarkable coming out of MIT and Lancet Therapeutics. It's a once-weekly oral pill. The idea is to basically transform medication adherence.
A total shift from the daily routine.
Yeah. So our mission here is to unpack how this seemingly simple solution works, how they developed it, and what it could really mean for potentially millions of people. So the core idea, the real innovation here is this ingestible capsule.
Right.
Think of it almost like a tiny programmable pharmacy inside your stomach. It creates what they call a drug depot.
A depot, yeah.
Yeah.
Slowly releasing the medication over time.
Exactly. So it takes away that need for a daily pill. You just take one once a week.
And what's fascinating isn't just the idea, it's the mechanics behind it. How does it actually work?
Right.
So this capsule, it starts off pretty small, about the size of a multivitamin, easy enough to swallow.
Okay, standard size.
But once it hits the stomach environment, it changes. It actually expands, unfolds into this star shape.
A star shape?
Yeah.
Inside your stomach?
Yeah. And that shape is absolutely crucial because once it's expanded, it's physically too large to pass through the pylorus.
The pylorus. That's the exit, right? The gateway from the stomach to the intestine.
Precisely. So the star just stays there, kind of floating freely in the stomach.
And while it's floating,
the arms of the star are slowly releasing the embedded medication over the course of about a week.
Okay, that's clever. A star that stays put, releasing medicine. But, I mean, the obvious question comes up, right?
How does it get out?
Yeah. Does it just stay there forever? How does it leave your system safely?
That's the really elegant part of the design.
Yeah.
It doesn't stay forever.
Okay.
After about a week, the arms of the star are engineered to just break off naturally.
On their own.
Exactly. It's not random. It's timed. It uses biocompatible materials that degrade predictably. So once those arms detach, each little segment is now small enough to easily pass through the pylorus.
Ah, I see.
And then they just travel harmlessly through the rest of your digestive tract and out. It's got this built-in self-clearing mechanism.
Wow. Okay, that is pretty ingenious. Built to stay, built to release, and built to leave.
That's the concept.
So that's the theory, the engineering. Sounds incredibly promising. But how did it actually perform, in people?
Right, the real-world test.
Yeah.
And that's where the clinical trial comes in. They ran a phase 3 trial specifically using this capsule.
Phase 3, okay. That's pretty far along in testing.
Yes, and they loaded the capsule with risperidone.
Risperidone, that's a common medication for schizophrenia.
It is. Very common. Now, people usually take risperidone as a daily pill. There are injectable versions, too.
Oh, right, the long-acting injectables.
Exactly. Given every couple of weeks, or maybe once a month, even every 2 months. But the thing is, those need a healthcare provider to administer them.
Needles, clinic visits.
Yeah, which isn't always practical or, frankly, what patients prefer. So the big potential benefit here was offering a less frequent option, but one that's still oral. Just a pill, once a week.
Okay, so they tested this weekly risperidone pill. What did they find? This was the Lancet Therapeutics trial, published in Lancet Psychiatry.
That's the one. It involved 83 patients spread across 5 different sites in the U.S., and 45 of those patients went through the whole 5 weeks of the study.
And the results, what did they actually observe?
Well, the findings were pretty striking and really validated the concept. First, they looked at drug levels in the patients' bodies.
Okay, were they consistent?
Remarkably so. They found steady levels of risperidone all week long. In fact, they noted less fluctuation, less up and down, compared to what you typically see with daily pills.
Interesting. So smoother delivery.
Seems like it. Each week, you'd see a clear increase right after they took the weekly pill, as expected. but then a slow, controlled decline over the next 7 days. And crucially, it stayed within the optimal therapeutic window the whole time.
And did it work? Were patients' symptoms controlled?
Yes, their symptoms remained stable throughout the study. They used a standard assessment scale, the PANSS score, that's the positive and negative syndrome scale, to confirm that.
Okay, stable symptoms, steady drug levels. What about side effects? Anything concerning there?
They reported side effects as being minimal. Some patients apparently had mild acid reflux or maybe some constipation early in the study, but the reports say these didn't last long. They were transient.
So overall, it sounds like the trial really supported the idea.
It did. It was a big step, validating, maybe a decade's worth of research and development behind this specific approach.
Okay, so this weekly pill worked well for risperidone in this trial. What does this mean when we look at the bigger picture, beyond schizophrenia?
That's where it gets really exciting, I think. The potential is much broader. One of the researchers involved, Giovanni Traverso, summed it up nicely.
What did he say?
He basically said, we've converted something that has to be taken once a day to once a week, orally. And the key part is using a technology that can be adapted for a variety of medications.
Ah, so the capsule itself is adaptable.
Exactly. It's a platform technology.
Yeah.
This ability to give a sustained, steady drug level for a whole week in a form that's easy to take, just swallowing a pill well, that could fundamentally change things. It just makes it so much easier to ensure patients actually get the medication they need consistently.
Takes away that daily adherence barrier.
Right, which is huge.
And thinking about it from the patient's side, I saw a quote from Leslie Citrom, the study's lead author.
Yes.
He pointed out that, one of the biggest obstacles in the care of people with chronic illnesses in general is that medications are not taken consistently.
Yeah.
It just rings so true.
Absolutely.
Imagine the mental load that lifts. If you have a chronic condition, managing daily pills can be a constant stressor, not just for the patient, but for caregivers too.
For sure.
So having an option to take your medicine just once a week by mouth, especially for those who'd rather not have injections, that could be a really important choice for a lot of people. It's about adherence, yes, but also autonomy and maybe just less daily hassle.
It really is. It addresses that adherence issue head on in a patient-friendly way.
So what are the next steps for this star-shaped pill technology?
Well, for the risperidone application, the hope is to move towards larger phase 3 studies. That's typically needed before you can apply for FDA approval.
Makes sense. More data, larger groups.
Right. But the potential, as we said, goes beyond risperidone. They're already gearing up for phase 1 trials using the same capsule concept to deliver other types of drugs.
Oh, like what?
They specifically mentioned contraceptives as one area they're exploring.
Wow, okay. A once-a-week contraceptive pill. That would be significant too.
Potentially, yes. It really highlights the platform nature of the technology.
So it's clear this once-weekly pill idea isn't just a small tweak. It feels like a pretty profound shift, potentially, in how we approach medication adherence and care for chronic conditions.
It could really simplify things and improve outcomes, making chronic condition management less burdensome, more effective, improving daily life for millions.
Definitely seems possible.
And, thinking about this, it really raises a bigger question for all of us, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, if this kind of ingestible, sustained-release tech can fundamentally change managing something as complex as schizophrenia, or maybe even simplify something as routine as contraception, what other chronic illnesses, what other daily medical needs could be transformed by this kind of, personalized, autonomous, less frequent approach?
Where else could removing the daily pill burden make a huge difference?
Exactly. And if we start applying this kind of thinking more broadly, what could that ultimately mean for overall public health?